Welcome to Breast Friends Cancer Support Network. Your host is Michelle Beck. Our show is here to help breast cancer patients, survivors, thrivers, their friends, and family by providing resources, support, and inspiration they can use right now. Here is your host, Michelle Beck.
Welcome to Breast Friends Cancer Support Network, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Michelle Beck. I'm a 2-time 9-year survivor of breast cancer. I'm the patient programs assistant at Breast Friends, and when I have time, I write at a blog called I Never Liked Pink. Before we get started today with my very favorite guest, I wanted to remind the listeners out there that I put together Warrior Stories episodes. Email me at michellebeck@breastfriends.org with your stories of inspiration, what helped you through your cancer journey, or how your life has changed for the better since cancer. Submissions should be 5 or 10 minutes long and in your own words. But let's get started today. So with me is Yvonne Nydigger, the yang to my yang, the silver lining to my cancer journey. And in this 3-part series, she and I are walking you through the steps to take, which will help you move forward after you're done with cancer treatment. And if you're here today, I really hope you've listened to part 1, which aired on August 18th of our 3-part series, because if not, pause this, go back and listen to part 1, and then come to today's episode, part 2, because it will make a lot more sense. So Yvonne, welcome. I love having you on the show. All of our listeners know that you are my person, and we sometimes share the same brain cells, which makes this so easy. And you are also one of the most knowledgeable people on this subject that I know. During the pandemic, you created this amazing workshop of classes, Life After Breast Cancer, and led it multiple times. And the women in those groups I know benefited so much. So we wanted to put it out there for the listeners. Today, we're going to talk about the things in the middle, the little changes in our lives that we still need to take to move forward. So Yvonne, I know we did this last week and we have the same listeners, hopefully, but tell us a little bit about yourself and why you know so much about this.
Well, yeah, and thank you, Michelle. And as everyone knows, she and I are sisters from another mister. So we have definitely enjoyed sharing this workshop with you. The thing I love about it is not only is it a program that I'm hoping is helping all of you, it's the same thing that helped both Michelle and I get through our journey. So 100%. We've experienced this. Yeah, this isn't just about the two of us reading books and saying, oh, okay, this is what you should do. This is about the two of us, and in some instances, learning it through the hard knocks of coming through it without a voice, or as I like to say, a guidebook, giving you the help that you might need. And
because we also lived through the shit.
Yes. To quote your coloring book, and that's a whole nother story. Yeah. But yeah, no, we've been there, done that, and we get it. And when I was putting this program together, I knew that there were so many women not only going through the trauma of being on the other side of the 3-part journey of cancer, that the after the doctors say you're done, bye, you're done, okay, thank you, be on your way. But also going through it during a pandemic. I mean, how when to use your word, how big of a shit show can you possibly ask for in life? So developing this program during COVID was a way of reaching out not only to all women, but to women in particular who are really trying to now emerge from being in lockdown, going through cancer, and having the whole world still be in a state of chaos. So it's been a great joy kind of coming up with this. And, before we get started today, I told Michelle I'm going to do what I always do, which is take a slight squirrel moment. Squirrel! Zip! Bling! Here she goes. But, Oregon, like so much of the country, is undergoing an incredible heat wave right now. And, traumatic conditions for not only our population, but our livestock and our vegetation. And everyone who knows me knows I'm an avid gardener. And I was out this morning and I was tending my garden because my garden had needs. My garden is facing another day of 100-degree temperatures. And so I was out there in the sun, dodging the wasps and the yellow jackets that seem to think I'm a moving target. And I was, I know, yeah, ooh, yay, she's sparkly. I'm going to go over here. Yeah, and that feeling when they land on your back and you think, oh, yeah, no. So I was really taking one for my garden team this morning, and I was out there, but I was out there because my plants needed me. And I knew they were not going to get the love and care unless I took it upon myself to provide them with shelter, food, water. So it's amazing to me. And as I was out there doing all of this, and I was doing this in order that my plants would thrive, how hard it is for us to view ourselves as we do our gardens. Mm-hmm. How hard is it for us to look at ourselves and say, you have been through a traumatic experience, or you are still in the midst of a traumatic experience. Why is it so hard for us to recognize our needs at a time of trauma? Mm-hmm. So I think, again, this was one of those moments where I thought, this is such a great analogy, reminding us that we can look around us at nature and we can see the visible benefits of taking the time and the energy to water our plants, to provide them with the nourishment they need, to tend our garden, even when it means getting our hands dirty or dodging really big-ass, ugly wasps.
Yeah, it's not always easy.
It's not always easy, but it's necessary for the plants to survive. And the same thing is true with a woman who is coming off of a diagnosis of cancer. If she doesn't take a moment to tend to her own personal garden, her mind, her body, her spirit, she's not going to thrive. She's not going to move past this in a way that's healthy, that's flourishing, that's emerging. So, so that was, that again, it was a great squirrel moment. I loved it because it really ties into the whole concept that nature, we can nourish our bodies, we can nurture our spirits through just observing nature and recognizing that we are in control of giving ourselves the tips and tools we need to make this a time in our life that is not quite so difficult.
And especially as women, it can be incredibly hard to take care of ourselves first, because whether you are a single woman, married, mom of plants, mom of dogs, whatever, we tend to put everybody else first. Our needs are always last. And I have one antidote, which I can think of, which really highlights this. We have a family that we quarantined with over the pandemic. In total, there was 10 of us with 2 families. And the other mom and I were literally always the last ones to eat and get our plates, because we made sure that everyone else was taken care of. And then we sat down last. Yeah. And that's kind of how we treat ourselves and our bodies. And it's something we really need to turn around. So that is why we are here today. So let's start. And in part 1 last week, we talked about dipping our toes back in the water and dealing with the big bad 4 challenges: body image, feelings of not being enough, how to communicate, and fear of recurrence. And then we spoke about tips to really cope with some of the above challenges. But what are we going to focus on today as the next step in our process?
Yeah, and as you mentioned last week, we kind of set the stage. And I think in setting the stage, what I really want to drive home to women is that as we talk about these big 4, and we talk about the fact that, we can't see each other because we're not necessarily in an environment that's conducive to looking at each other. But the bobbleheads, the fact that as we talk about each one of these gigantic topics and how hard it is to address them, every woman who's watching, listening, hearing what we're talking about is nodding her head. She's nodding her head in agreement. And it's that acknowledgement. It's that validation. It's that sense of you are not the only one that I've found in working with women is the most important tool. you can give a woman every fact possible about why you're going to suffer from a particular side effect. Mm-hmm. But until she's actually talked to another woman who is suffering from the same side effect, she doesn't feel heard, because the book doesn't understand necessarily, because the person who wrote it may not have gone through it. They have the science, but they don't have the actual connection. So, in what we're doing right now in the workshop, they would be in a situation that they'd be looking at each other and be nodding their heads and saying, yeah, I get it. And I want everyone out there, man, woman, I want you all to understand you are not alone. This particular stage of going through a diagnosis, whether you have completed your treatment, are continuing with some sort of follow-up treatment, or you're waiting for a final surgery, can be one of the most challenging. It can be filled with the most sense of apprehension and depression, but you are not alone. And by connecting with other women and their stories, it's going to give you a feeling of, oh, okay, this is okay. I'm not alone.
I'm not the stranger alone on this island. And I so identify with that, because after my first time around with cancer was an easier time. And I really moved on, and I didn't need the ton of support. But man, the second time threw me for a loop. And after my treatment, I was lost. I didn't know what to do or how to move forward, because, as you said, your doctor said bye-bye, and you're like, well, what now? And for me, finding Breast Friends and the support that it gave, and the women who I met around me who were going through everything, it was integral in my healing process and finding my normal plus.
Yeah. And we're actually going to jump right in, because I know we're running low on time today, and I want to be able to get everything in. And I'm going to start kind of with one of my biggest analogies, and I know you love
your analogies.
But we introduced it last week, and that's the idea of toes in the water, because this stage of cancer is a lot like walking around and coming up to an unknown pier, and on an unknown body of water. And you know how, when you're on a pier and you walk towards the end of it and you don't know the water, you don't know if it's cold, you don't know what's down there. I mean, there could be gigantic sharks down there for all you know.
Loch Ness monster.
Yeah, exactly. And if you walk to the end of that pier, that complete unknown, and you're standing on the end of the pier and someone walks up behind you and shoves you in, oh my God, the fear, that instant, that moment, we've all felt that, just taking in a breath because we're being pushed. That's the moment that we're going to talk about how to make that not how all of these transitions back into your life are going to feel. It is so overwhelming, and it can be the thing that can paralyze us. It can be the fear that keeps us from moving forward. It can be the sense of foreboding that makes everything so much bigger. The sharks are so much bigger than the little minnows that are at the bottom, the Loch Ness monster that's really not in there, and the water could be just absolutely lovely. We don't know, because that fear is so paralyzing.
I think really a lot of these steps can relate to everything in life, because the fear of the unknown is so debilitating, and you can really put it across so many instances. But we're obviously dealing with the post-cancer treatment today, but I think really these tools can then help in so many ways. But I know I'm going to let you talk now, because we have so much to get through today.
Yeah. And I've got a really quick, it's an interesting study that I read, and I'd love to be able to go back and tell you exactly where it is, but I can't. So you're just going to have to trust me on this one, guys. And I'm one of those people. But it said that if you take all the time that you were in treatment, in active treatment, if you add up all the days from the moment you were diagnosed to the end of your active treatment, if you add up all those days, it's going to take your body equally as long to actually heal from the process you went through. I mean, that's amazing. If you think about that length of time from the beginning to that point, if you add up all those days, and then another really, really, really interesting point is, do you know that nerves only heal 1 millimeter a month? A month. Mm-hmm. Our bodies take time to heal, but we're in such a ding dang hurry. It's like, oh my God, I'm in such a hurry. I finished, I'm done with my radiation. I've had my surgery. I want to jump. I'm going into that pier. Push. Here I go. Because we don't give our bodies the grace that they need, the permission that they need to heal. And that millimeter of growth and healing that our nerves do, we have to understand that there's so many nerves and so many muscles and so much structure in our body that has to heal in that equivalent amount of time that it took to get here. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
It's funny. I look at it like both of my tumors each time were tiny, 3 to 4 millimeters. Teeny tiny. But the scars from my surgeries, inches and inches around my body. And I'm 4 years out from my last surgery during my treatment year, and I'm still recovering physically and emotionally. But I know that I'm going to be okay because I'm a work in progress and I am the new and improved me. And that is how I look at myself. We are going to take a short break, but remember, if you need our assistance, please go to our website, breastfriends.org, and you can also make a donation there, or by texting BF Radio to 41444 to help Breast Friends continue on its mission to ensure that women do not go through cancer alone. Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
Female cancers affect women, but women's effects are felt throughout our families, workplaces, and communities. Elekta is driving advances in precision radiation medicine across our portfolio of devices. By enabling treatment that is highly responsive to changes in tumor shape, position, and biology, but doesn't compromise the health of surrounding tissue and the patient, we protect the moments that matter in the lives of women with female cancers and everyone they touch. Learn more at Elekta.com. That's ELEKTA.com.
Thank you for listening today. Breast Friends needs your support. We rely on donations to continue our mission that no woman goes through cancer alone and to keep the show going. Please consider making a tax-deductible donation to Breast Friends. You can text BF Radio to 41444 or visit us at breastfriends.org to donate. You can also like us on Facebook at Breast Friends of Oregon or follow us on Instagram at Breast Friends PDX. Be sure to tune in to the Voice America Health and Wellness channel every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time for Breast Friends Cancer Support Network.
Have you friended us on Facebook yet? Why not? Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for the keywords Voice America. Once you are part of our Facebook network, you'll receive daily messages about what's happening with our shows, this week's featured guests, and new happenings at the Voice America Talk Radio Network. And you can add your voice to the always active discussions on our timeline. Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for Voice America.
You are tuned in to Breast Friends Cancer Support Network. To reach the program today, please call us at 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to Michelle Beck at breastfriends.org. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to our show. I'm Michelle Beck, and my guest is Yvonne Nydigger, and we've been talking about life after cancer. So, Yvonne, let's talk about the differences between dipping our toes in the water and how we get off the pier.
Yeah. So, as we mentioned last segment, there is that sense so many times of being pushed off the end of our new life, this unfamiliar peer. And I want to kind of give some examples to our listeners of what that means, because I think a lot of people are out there going, oh, yeah, no, that's not me. I don't do that. That's nothing I've ever done. And this is a really great way to kind of own this and understand that, yeah, you may be doing this. So, the first thing is going back to work. Going back to work. All right, all of you out there who've gone back to work full bore, and you have set your expectation bars so high. You've said, all right, I'm going to go back. I'm fine. I
can do this. I'm strong.
I'm strong. I can go back and I can do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I can take on all of the work I used to do. I can multitask 3 different things. All of these things, all of these expectation bars that we set in our work environment are really setting us up for this epic fail.
Hashtag
fail. Yeah. And it's so frustrating to me. I have a quick analogy of my own that I want to share from a patient of mine who called me, and she was so upset because she was exhausted. She was so tired. She says, Yvonne, I don't understand why I'm so tired. I'm done with treatment and I'm just exhausted. Well, she was a school teacher, and she'd gone back to work, and she was doing all the things that school teachers do, which is way more than any human being should have to do anyway.
Amen.
Amen. Yes, God love our teachers. But in the course of explaining to me her day and how things were going and how frustrated she was, she sort of snuck in that she had also volunteered to do some extra credit projects. And I kind of said, whoa, let's stop the bus right here. And I said, was this something that your principal asked you to do? And she says, oh, no, I volunteered to do it. And I said, and why would you do that? Why? And she said, well, because before I had cancer, I always did that. So I said, in other words, you had this expectation bar that after going through everything you've been through, you were not only going to go back to work, you were going to do all the extra things. And she was like, oh.
Light bulb.
Yeah. Ooh. And I know you had one because you told me.
Yes. I was very fortunate after I had my son to be a stay-at-home mom. And when he started kindergarten, I was like, yeah, I really want to find something to do and want to go back to work. Well, in January of his kindergarten year, I took the fall off to get used to having some time and enjoying life without a child at home. Love my child, but God, I need time. So I took a job. I got diagnosed in January of his kindergarten year. That's it. So that ended up being my full treatment year. Went through 3 surgeries, medications, so many other things. And it was rough. But so my last surgery was in July. And so September rolled around. I'm like, okay, I've got time. I need to do something. And I took a literally 2-hour-a-day job at my son's school, working in the lunchroom, walking around to the kids, making sure they're not fighting, helping them open their milk, giving them bathroom passes, whatever. And I was
How long did you last?
3 days. 3 freaking days, because I could not be on my feet. The pain that I was in, still my body was recovering from surgery. The medication that I was on, I am side effect queen. I have a lot of joint and muscle pain. 3 days. And I literally had to walk into the principal's office and say, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I have to quit. And I was in tears. I mean, the poor woman, she's fabulous. I am sobbing in the principal's office. And mind you, my son's in kindergarten at this point. I barely knew this woman. But I remember that and that's how I found Breast Friends, because I knew I needed to do something. I left the school that day and drove straight to Breast Friends because I knew I could sit and volunteer and do something. And but literally it was a massive fail because I took on too much too soon.
And that's the sad thing. Again, that expectation bar, when you say words like a massive fail, because we set that bar, because you set the bar saying, okay, I'm going to do this, even though I know it's maybe a little out of my energy level right now, the fact that you tried, that you did something, shouldn't feel like a fail. It was just one of those moments when you had
wrong turn.
Yeah, it was a wrong turn. It wasn't quite where you should be. Just like the school teacher, she was going back to school, but she added that layer because she set that bar just a little bit too high. And, we do this in so many other ways. We do this in our body images, our weight management, our exercise. I hear of so many women who tell me that, they used to run 5 miles and not think a thing about it. And when they're done with treatment, suddenly they feel like, I don't understand why I can't do 5 miles. Well, can you do 1 mile? And is that grounds for you to say, good job, you did a mile, instead of saying, wah, I can't do 5 miles. So obviously I'm not good enough. And, I think the third thing that is a great example of this is the supermom theory. Super moms out there are all going to be bobbleheading right now because, again, you've gone through treatment and your family has been incredible. They have more than likely stepped up to the plate. Even those youngsters and, God forbid, the teenager that actually helps around the house when you're going through cancer. But the moment the doctor says you're done, or your hair starts to grow back in, or they know you're not going to appointments anymore, that teenager, or even, God forbid, in my case, my husband had told me he was going to always take the trash out for me during my cancer treatment. And I tell you, not the day I came home and said the doctor had told me that I no longer had any signs of cancer in my body after my surgery.
Guess who was taking out the trash again?
Honest to God, the next morning I woke up and I busted out laughing because the trash was under the sink, and I went, well, I guess that train has left the tracks. So yeah. And Michelle, I know you can beat yourself up.
Identify with that. My first diagnosis, my son was 18 months, and it was an easier journey. But the next one, because I had a lumpectomy and radiation, and not that that's always easy, I was very fortunate. My next one was a lot. Bilateral mastectomy with latissimus back flap, the full hysterectomy, reconstruction takes its toll on your body. I was fortunate enough that during that time, my sister paid for house cleaners for me. I had a meal train.
God love your sister.
Oh God, she was still freaking amazing. She flew out here from, I don't know where she lived at the time, and she spent weeks here with me washing and blow drying my hair, because I couldn't do it. Couldn't move your arms afterwards. And I'm super sensitive about my hair. So she needed to do that for me. But afterwards, it's the same thing. They're like, oh, well, okay, you're good. And, not that she needed to pay for my house cleaners forever. But when I tried to start vacuuming again, my arms don't want to do that. They're tired. And God forbid I had to cook a meal again. I think that's the worst part of adulthood, is figuring out what to make for dinner every goddamn night.
I know.
And I beat myself up over it because I used to be able to do all of those things and take care of my son, take care of the dogs, take care of the family. And as a stay-at-home mom, my job was the house, the meals, the bills, because my husband brought in the money and I gave out the money. But all of it was a struggle, and it was really freaking hard.
Yeah. And again, I wish there was I think if every single one of us had an expectation bar in our house, like if we all, this is a great arts and crafts project. Let's all make ourselves get like a piece of dowel or something and paint like all these crazy things on this bar and hold it up in front of ourselves and say, okay, why do we need to have this measure of our worth? Why do we constantly have to feel like there needs to be something that tells us we've reached a point that we're okay, that we're enough? We talked about that in the first episode of Am I Enough? And that feeling of not being enough. So much of that is brought on by ourselves. It's not brought on, I'm quite sure in most cases, granted, yes, employers, people like that, we don't necessarily want to sit down and have the big wah about the fact that we can't do our job, but we want to have realistic expectations again, that communication. This goes back to one of the big four. We don't always communicate at this time what it is that we feel, need, want, and the people around us are not mind readers. Our boss doesn't know that we aren't capable of taking on 6 more assignments. My husband, bless his heart, may not have known that I would have loved to have had him continue to take that garbage out just as an outward sign of support. Your children or your husband may not have known that you weren't strong enough yet to take all of those tasks on. These are all things that we, as women in particular, that dang bar. We set that thing. It's like those Olympic athletes.
I was just thinking the same thing. We're not Olympians. And I was watching the high jump and how do these people, they just go wee and then go over the bar. For us, after cancer treatment, we literally need to take the bar down from 10 feet to 1 foot.
Yeah. And then we have to use our whole body to just get step over the thing, let alone flail over it.
And to give ourselves a high five that we've made it over that 1 foot. Yeah. Because we have to build it back up slowly. But unfortunately, we are our own worst enemies. Right. And that's something we need to stop, because if we cannot give ourselves the grace to heal and recover, we're not going to.
No. And, it's like the Olympians. They set the bar where they know they've done it before. And they have that expectation. Because I've done this before, I can go up and I can do it again. But in the first segment, we talked about the fact that as a warrior who's gone through a battle, who has scars, who is exhausted, who has this incredible weight on her shoulders of everything, emotional, physically, spiritual, that she's been through. And she stands at this precipice on this pier. And if we expect her, if we look at her and we don't feel pride in what she's been through, if we don't give her grace, if we don't give her permission to heal, and we look at her and say, okay, see that bar up there that was set there before you went through all of this? We expect you to leap over that. If we don't take that bar off and allow her that time, that length of time, that millimeter a month that she needs to heal, she's going to feel that sense of failure the entire time. She's going to feel that she's not enough.
This is when you pull out that cancer card.
Yeah.
And say, hey, here's my card. I need time. Yeah. And because time does help, but there's also steps that we can take. And I know we're going to talk about that in our next segment, but can you introduce that a little bit?
Yeah. And one of the things that, I'll sort of reiterate on is when you say steps we can take, one of the biggest words that I think people need to make a sign and put it on their, whether it's their bathroom mirror or their refrigerator, is I can set boundaries. I can set boundaries in my life. I can say that I can't do this, or I don't want to do this, or I don't need to do this. And it could be something as simple as, today I don't feel well. I don't have to vacuum. I don't need to vacuum. I don't want to vacuum. Therefore, I'm setting a boundary and saying, I'm not vacuuming today. So, that's a simple analogy, but it's something that I think is really important, that we allow ourselves to set the boundaries. And in our next conversation, the act of putting our toe in the water, sticking our toe in the water, it gives us time to get our bearings. It gives us time to assess any of the risk, and it gives us a way of easing into adjustments. We give ourselves a chance to find that center and to establish all of those boundaries. And it also gives us a chance to reward ourselves, like I say, for that marathon runner or that runner, gives them a chance to pat themselves on the back for just doing 1 mile. So we're going to talk about the wheel of balance and how the ripple effect from putting our toe in the water is going to help find balance in our wheel.
Yes, and because we're not jumping into the water, we're sticking our toes in. And the wheel of balance, which we're going to talk about next, you can actually go to my website, www.ineverlikedpink.com. And the Wheel of Balance is going to be there and some homework for our next episode. So we are going to talk about that after the break, but stay with us. We'll be back soon.
Become our friend on Facebook. Post your thoughts about our shows and network on our timeline. Visit facebook.com/Voice America.
Female cancers affect women, but women's effects are felt throughout our families, workplaces, and communities. Electa is driving advances in precision radiation medicine across our portfolio of devices. By enabling treatment that is highly responsive to changes in tumor shape, position, and biology, but doesn't compromise the health of surrounding tissue and the patient, we protect the moments that matter in the lives of women with female cancers and everyone they touch. Learn more at electa.com. That's ELEKTA.com.
Thank you for listening today. Breast Friends needs your support. We rely on donations to continue our mission that no woman goes through cancer alone and to keep the show going. Please consider making a tax-deductible donation to Breast Friends. You can text BF Radio to 41444 or visit us at breastfriends.org to donate. You can also like us on Facebook at Breast Friends of Oregon or follow us on Instagram at Breast Friends PDX. Be sure to tune in to the Voice America Health and Wellness channel every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time for Breast Friends Cancer Support Network.
Have you friended us on Facebook yet? Why not? Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for the keywords Voice America. Once you are part of our Facebook network, you'll receive daily messages about what's happening with our shows, this week's featured guests, and new happenings at the Voice America Talk Radio Network. And you can add your voice to the always active discussions on our timeline. Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for Voice America.
You are tuned in to Breast Friends Cancer Support Network. To reach the program today, please call us at 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to Michelle Beck at breastfriends.org. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Michelle Beck. My guest is Yvonne Nydigger, and we've been talking about life after cancer and how to get through that crazy time period. So before the break, Yvonne, you introduced the idea of the Wheel of Balance to start changing how we approach our reemergence in the different areas of our life. And I know a bit about this because I've been through these workshops, but can you tell our listeners out there how it all works?
Absolutely. And I'm sitting here and I'm laughing because during the break, Michelle and I were both sitting here talking about Wheel of Fortune. And the minute you started saying Wheel of Balance, my mind just went, Wheel of Fortune. So, oh my God, I swear. Oh, yeah. You know,
didn't we all dream to be Vanna one day with the easiest job in the world?
My gosh.
Now she doesn't even have to turn the letters. She just taps them.
I know. Seriously. It's great. Anyway, yeah. So that was my segue. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you know, and I hope that since, you know, this is a program that you've all been listening to prior, that you've had a chance to take a look at what this is oftentimes called the Wheel of Balance, because it's really important to see that, you know, our worlds are actually divided very neatly into different categories. You know, when you stop and take a look at one of these wheels, you'll see everything from relationships to work to health and wellness. You know, these are the types of categories that we all have. It's consistent. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are. Mm-hmm. These are things that everyone possesses. And like the spokes in a wheel, these are the things that keep our wheels moving straight. If for chance, for whatever reason, if one of your spokes happens to be dented or damaged, your wheel doesn't you don't roll well. You don't roll.
The sound in my mind is like whoa, 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 because you're all wobbly.
Yeah, seriously. You know, and it's a great visual because you can see very clearly when you look at the Wheel of Balance that if you know, which is so many times the case when I'm working with women, the first thing after cancer that becomes the thing that has the spoke completely missing. I mean, it has left the building is the health and wellness, because we all feel kind of like a red hot mess. We are all medicating with food. None of us have exercised for how long. And it just feels like that space in our body that is just needing so much attention. So, the wheels are a nice way to kind of stop, look at these categories or these pieces, these spokes in your world, and do an evaluation on how you're doing. Because maybe something is fabulous. A great example, one of my gals said that she really rediscovered her spirituality during her cancer. That was something that, because she was working all the time, she was always focusing on doing, that she never took time to pause and to be quiet and to be still. And she said in those times, in those moments of exploring the idea of mindfulness and wellness, she reaffirmed a lot of her own personal spirituality, what that happened to mean to her. So yeah, it is, it's common to have, as you look at the wheel, spokes that are bright and shiny, spokes that are a little on the dingy side, use some polish, and like I say, spokes that are either broken or have left the building. It's not uncommon.
Yeah. For me, I have a couple that really need work. Physically right now, I'm a red hot mess. I really, up until a couple weeks ago, I was doing good. I had started seeing a nutritionist.
Then she breaks her back.
Yeah. I broke my damn back. I'm not in traction or anything, but I have an L2 compression fracture, which means I cannot do a whole hell of a lot. And I cannot get on my beloved Peloton bike, which is right behind me, for months. It literally made me cry because I could tell I'm working on my fitness. I was exercising, my body was getting stronger. And then this happened and I was like, oh, it was such a letdown. But I know that in a few months I can get back on it again. And I can work on my nutrition in this time, which is hard because I'm not going to lie, I want comfort food. Oh, funny story yesterday. It's freaking hot here. And I went outside for a couple minutes to do something with the dogs, came back in and I was getting an ice pack out of the freezer. And I noticed my son had Otter Pops in there. I was like, oh, those look good. And then I remembered I had frozen wine pops in there. And so I had one of those.
Are grown-up Otter Pops.
I did. I had one of those in the middle of the day. And I'm sitting on the couch with my ice pack, my pillows everywhere. And my husband comes in and he looks at me. He's like, are you having a wine pop? I was like, damn right I am, because that is what I want to do today. And sometimes we have to give ourselves those little bits of pleasure to just move on.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That was just a funny story. But for me, another spoke that I am really focusing on, because there's a lot of them that are great in my life. A great marriage, wonderful friends and family. But professionally, I'm still on a path, and cancer has led me to a whole different direction. I was a career chief level executive assistant before I became a stay-at-home mom. I knew I didn't want to go back to that. But then after cancer, I became a volunteer, a programs assistant, and now a podcast host. But some of my big goals, I want to write a book. I want to write a couple books, actually. And there's things that have been stopping me from even starting the process. And fear is one of them. And that's a hurdle that I really need to work on. And so those are my two things that I'm going to be working on for the next while, is moving my professional career along and, my health and wellness, because those are my dingy spokes.
Yeah. And I chuckled because when we were again at the break, we were talking and Michelle had shared with me that while she's been on this lovely pain medication, she decided that she's not going to write just one book, she's going to write two. And I said, okay, remember that expectation bar that we were talking about earlier? I said, let's bring that bad boy back down to about a foot off of the mat. Okay. I don't want you to get too discouraged with the idea of two. Let's work on that one.
The first book is going to be a compilation of short essays about cancer and things I've learned through cancer. So that I can do. Especially because I can't do anything else right now.
She's like a walking, breathing model of everything that I talk about. It's so great. It's so awesome. You're doing an amazing job. It's wonderful. But yeah,
I'm glad to have plenty of fodder for you over here.
And I myself, I think it's, understanding that missing a few spokes, having things be slightly dingy is part of the process. And the biggest thing is recognizing and looking at them. Because again, when we look at the big piece, when we look at our wheel, when our wheel is wobbling down the road or our wheel has fallen off our wagon and it's laying by the side of the road, and we look at that wheel and all we feel is discouragement. And this is a really important point, because there are a lot of you out there who are managing, and Michelle and I laugh because, you just have to. Sometimes you have
laugh
to.
or cry.
You've got to. But what's really important, because I want those of you out there that are maybe feeling like, this isn't very funny for me because I am struggling. I am dealing with so much depression about the fact that I feel broken. I feel like my wheel has fallen off my wagon and it's lying in a heap. I've spoken to women who break down in sobs when we talk about this particular activity, because they look at their wheel and they're like, I can't even find my spokes. I'm having such a hard time. I don't even know how to address this. So I want you all to understand that what this exercise is about is not necessarily looking at this and feeling like you aren't enough. It's looking at this wheel and saying, all right, these are opportunities that I have to gently put my toe in the water and find out how, as small bites, as small pieces, as individual spokes, can I work on finding my way past this feeling of being not enough, of my wheel being broken, of me laying on the side of the road and not knowing how to get it back to where it was rolling before. So we're really talking about taking that wheel one spoke at a time and looking at each one of them and saying, where am I? Where am I right now in this spoke? How am I feeling about this spoke? What I'd love everyone to do is sit down with one of these and look at that and say, all right, this is a spoke that I want to address. This is something that I really, really, really want to try to fix. And then we're going to talk about how to move forward in doing that. But looking at each of your spokes, doing an assessment, it's like doing a check-in. How is my wheel? I'm going to check in. I'm going to check the tire and see how it's doing. So moving your way around. We're not looking to push yourself off the pier. We're not looking to make this the most terrifying, I'm going to fix my health and wellness by suddenly stopping eating all the things that I love to eat.
Wine pops.
Yeah, wine pop, carbs, hello. All the things that we are, we're told that we need to do in order to have this be a perfect thing. Everybody tells us that we need to diet and exercise in order to lose the weight that we've put on because of the medication that we're taking after or during our chemo treatment. Okay, how many bobbleheads do I have out there? How many
and
women
menopause.
are saying, whether it's forced or natural, all of these things put our weight on. And what we have to do is realize that all of the things that they tell us we need to do are true. But pushing ourselves off the pier right now, when our warrior is a little damaged, she's got a little bit of time that she needs to make up for that millimeter again, is just too terrifying. We've got to... go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just kind of relating back to what you said earlier. We can laugh about this now because we're years out.
Yeah.
You're 11 years out. I'm 4 years out, and we've worked on this together a lot.
Yeah.
Like we've been through this, and this is what we've done since we've been diagnosed with cancer, and after this is our life, our profession. And so this is how we can laugh about it. But it is a very serious subject. And after treatment, I definitely had anxiety and depression, and I was already on anxiety medication because I had a 16-year-old demon spawn stepson who lived with us at the time, who I love now. And he's almost 22 and one of the most fabulous people I know. But so there is hope, parents of teenagers. But I upped my anxiety meds. I was going to therapy for depression. But then I realized that I needed to take baby steps to work on specific areas in my life. And as you get there, looking at different things on the wheel, and once you conquer some spokes, they help us in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's by putting your toes in the water, you choosing one particular spoke, gently, safely, smartly, you're going to discover that there's a ripple effect. When you start to take care of one spoke, it'll actually start to take care of some of the others. And then it'll ripple on into the next. It's like when you watch your toe, and try this, put your toe in a piece of water somewhere, find a body of water and watch that ripple. And then imagine that this is your wheel and that you've chosen a piece of your wheel to work on. How is that going to ripple? And this is a wonderful journaling exercise. Because what will happen as that starts to ripple and as you start to achieve part of what you're looking towards, and that's going to be our next conversation, you're going to find renewed confidence. You're going to find yourself feeling more confident in your ability to make change. You're going to find yourself, it's a little bit like Michelle, when you found the Peloton bike, I watched your confidence grow because it was something you could do that you enjoyed. And it was that, oh, I can do this. I have more confidence. Where before the bike, you were like, oh, I just don't know what to do. I can't do other things. And it gives you more energy when we're successful. When you start to be good at something, when something starts to work, you start to feel like, dang, I can take on other things.
I can do this.
I can do this. I have severe peripheral neuropathy, and I have not been able to, in my mind, walk for 11 years. Most of my walking has been limited to small snippets. And for me to go out and actually do a walk, it included maybe a mile. But I started looking at this as an opportunity. And I started patting myself on the back when I did a mile instead of saying, oh, that's so terrible, I can only do a mile. And pretty soon I was doing 2 miles. And then I was doing 3 miles. And about, a week ago, my husband and I went out on a hike. I did 6.5 flippin' miles of walking.
Amazing.
And I survived the next day. So you're going to find this confidence, and then that confidence is going to leak out into all of it. You're going to say, I can repair this one now because that one worked. And you're going to,
I have to stop you because we're literally almost out of time.
I know.
Because there's so much to talk about. But these ripple effects are so amazing. And next week, tell us quickly what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about how to work on your ripple effect by basically setting up non-goal goals, which is my own personal term, which I love. And we're also going to look at a value assessment, which Michelle's going to tell you how we're going to set that up. And it's basically something that we'd like to have because this is going to be live. We'd like to have some people do this value assessment, base it on the idea of you being at the end of your cancer journey, going in, looking at the assessment, where you feel like you should line up value-wise. And then I want you to look at where you actually line up. And then we're going to talk about how cancer has made that line a little bit different and maybe a little bit better.
Awesome. So, and I hate to cut you off, but we are out of time. So you can find the wheel and the value assessment at ineverlikedpink.com. Yvonne, thank you so much for being here. I love being here with you. Yes. Listeners, make sure you're here next week. You can... Wow, I'm just literally like my head is exploding because we have no time left. But thank you all for joining us. You can find our services at breastfriends.org, and we'll be back next week. Until then, remember, we rise by lifting each other.